Most people would agree that the Abrahamic religions had a remarkable influence on Western civilization. In fact, some would even claim that these religious doctrines are at the core of our socio-political structure. Interestingly enough, at the root of all the Abrahamic religions lies the concept of monotheism. The average layman may assume this theology originated in the Middle East, perhaps due to popular culture. However, one scholar reorients our understanding of its origin, pointing us in the direction of Africa. What up, African world? It's Home Team here, and welcome back to another video of African history, culture, and worldview. By supporting this channel on Patreon, you're helping in the creation of these videos and contributing to this content. On Patreon, you can find more in-depth courses on African history. Also, your support helps the channel grow, improving production quality and future animated projects. And with the word from my sponsors, there's a new social media platform dedicated to educating and uplifting our people. No longer do we have to be censored for speaking our truth. OBT Social is Black owned and operated, and a place where you can post your businesses and even monetize your content. You can visit the website at obtsocial.com. Links to everything in the description box below. To begin, the information presented in this video is reliant on the pioneering work of Christopher Ehret. Dr. Ehret took a deep dive into Africa's ancient cultural traditions. His work not only reminded but demonstrated to us how African religion, culture, and language diffused outside of the African continent into other parts of the globe, contributing to world history. Much of this information has not been properly disseminated or adopted into common intellectual traditions, and so it may come as a dynamic paradigm shift for some. Research in this area is still in its infancy, and so independent analysis and study is highly recommended. I hope that the sources presented at the end of this video can be a starting point for those interested. So let's begin. When questions concerning the origin of monotheism arises, most scholars parsimoniously point you in the direction of Pharaoh Akhenaten of New Kingdom Egypt. Africans were the first humans to conceive of a concept of monotheism, and Akhenaten has been considered the first person to have commented on the idea of one God. From this quote, we get a vague idea that monotheism originated in Africa and that Pharaoh Akhenaten was perhaps the first African to codify this concept into the social fabric of African civilization. This is a good start. However, the quote evinces a general African origin of monotheism outside of the man who may have popularized it. This is where Christopher Ehret's delineated work becomes critical. He separates African civilization into 4 language groups. These groups include the Niger-Congo, Nilo-Saharan, Afrasan, also known as Afro-Asiatic, and Khoisan. He demonstrates that the Nilo-Saharan African language groups specifically located in the northern Sudanic branch originated monotheism well before the concept existed in the Middle East or in Europe. The time frame which he gives for this origin is before 8500 BC, well before the foundations of the Abrahamic religions. Not only did monotheism originate amongst the Nilo-Saharan population, but it spread to other African populations, most saliently amongst a particular Afrasan Cushitic-speaking group. Concerning the theology of the northern Sudanic branch, this is what Dr. Ehret has to say. At the core of the belief system was a single divinity or God. Divinity was identified metaphorically with the sky, and the power of divinity was often symbolized by lightning. There was no other category of spirits or deities. In some more recent versions of the Sudanic religion, divinity might choose to manifest itself to human beings in the form of seemingly particular lesser spirits. But the followers of Sudanic religion understood those spirits to be just other guises of divinity. It was from this religious tradition of monotheistic belief that one of the Afrasan populations learned about the concept of one God, a theology they willingly adopted, instantiating the first presence of religious syncretism in world history. This group, as mentioned previously, was from the Cushitic branch of the Afrasan population. The Kushites did not discard the old Afrosan explanation of dangerous spirits as the principal cause of evil, but they did drop their earlier allegiances to clan deities in favor of a belief in one divinity. So as we can see, not only did monotheism originate amongst Nilo-Saharan Africans according to Christopher Ehret, we've observed its exodus of influence, if you will, amongst other Africans, notably the Cushitic-speaking Afrosan peoples. As a further note, it's absolutely fascinating how other Afrosan-speaking Africans in general moved into the Sinai-Palestinian region, culturally influencing the area. The early Afrosan grain collectors who moved across Sinai into Palestine, in all likelihood, brought the practice of male circumcision with them. The modern-day presence of this custom in Judaism as a subsidiary cultural aspect of Islam, two religions started by people who spoke languages of the only Asian branch of Afrosan, Semitic, undoubtedly traces back to this ancient aspect of Afrosan civilization. Though the Cushitic branch of the Afrosan population may not have introduced monotheism in the Sinai-Palestinian region, it's really interesting to see how the larger Afrosan group in general did introduce a key function of the Abrahamic cultural tradition as their culture began to move northward into the Middle East. Regardless, the idea of monotheism, according to Christopher Ehret's pioneering work, originated not amongst Pharaoh Akhenaten or even in the Middle East, but amongst Nilo-Saharan Africans. It would be interesting to mention this pivotal African contribution to human religion and spirituality in popular discourse. Monotheism is certainly at the core of the Abrahamic religions. To know that this foundational idea originated amongst a specific group of African people can go a long way into affirming Africa's place in world history and the human story. Well, I'm all out, guys. If you like these videos and want to help in its continued production, consider supporting the home team on patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. Know thyself. Remember your ancestors. Peace.